Good evening. Well, tonight we break down what's actually inside this peace plan, why it has emerged now, and how the reactions from Kyiv, Moscow and European capitals could determine whether this becomes a pathway to negotiation or another flashpoint in an already volatile war. With a Zelensky and Trump call expected next week, diplomats warn the coming days may prove decisive.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's dedicated for honest work on the US peace proposal that he formally received on Thursday. The 28-point plan was delivered by US Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll and aims to intensify negotiations to end the nearly four-year war. Zelensky says Kyiv is reviewing it with Washington and European partners.
The American side provided its proposals the points of the plan to end the war. Their vision. Ukraine needs peace, and a real peace that will not be broken by a third invasion. We agreed that our teams will work on these proposals. We will not make abrupt statements. We are committed to clear and honest work with the United States, with Europe, and with our partners around the world. I expect to speak with President Trump in the coming days. We know that the strength and support of America can truly bring peace closer, and we do not want to lose that.
In the proposal, Ukraine would surrender additional eastern territory in exchange for long-term US security guarantees. According to US and Ukrainian officials cited by news agency Axios, the framework would grant Russia full de facto control of all of Luhansk and Donetsk and freeze current lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia, with withdrawn areas becoming a demilitarized buffer. The plan also calls for Kyiv to cap its armed forces, limit long-range weapons and renounce NATO membership conditions Ukrainian officials say are unacceptable. Sources say Qatar and Turkey helped shape the draft, and that Zelensky's national security advisor Rustem Umerov held direct talks with Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington is preparing serious and realistic ideas, arguing that any durable peace will require difficult compromises on both sides.
Well, as talks of peace continue, Ukraine's city of Kupiansk has reportedly been captured by Russian forces, although Kyiv denies this claim.
Russia's army says it has taken control of the strategic city of Kupiansk in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. However, Ukraine's military denies the city has changed hands. President Vladimir Putin visited the command post of Russia's West Group on Thursday, where commanders briefed him on the army's progress in the city.
Units of the West Grouping have liberated the city of Kupiansk and are continuing to destroy Ukrainian armed forces units surrounded on the left bank of the Oskol River.
The army says it has also captured more than 80% of Vovchansk in the Kharkiv region, with further advances underway in Pokrovsk, another strategic city in eastern Ukraine. Russia has been pressuring Pokrovsk for more than a year, using a pincer movement in an attempt to encircle it and cut supply lines. Russian military maps now show the city under Russian control, with Ukrainian troops surrounded in nearby MENA. Moscow says that capturing Pokrovsk would provide a platform to push north toward the two largest remaining Ukrainian-held cities in the Donetsk region, Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. However, Ukraine also dismisses that Russian forces have taken over large parts of Pokrovsk and Vovchansk near the Russian border. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Air Force said it carried out fresh strikes on an oil refinery in the Russian city of Ryazan in an effort to weaken Russia's military-economic capacity. The attack cut power to parts of the southwestern Kursk region overnight, leaving more than 16,000 residents without electricity, according to regional authorities. These developments come as US Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv on Thursday to discuss a new US-drafted proposal for Russia-Ukraine peace talks.
Well, joining me now is Alexei Haran, Professor of Politics at Kyiv Mohyla Academy in Kyiv, Ukraine. Professor, thank you very much for joining us, not least because in the last few seconds you've just experienced a blackout, and we thank you very much for bearing with us. We are delighted to have you with us for as long as this link lasts, so please do bear with us. I wanted to start by asking you, President Zelensky says he won't betray the national interest. He's clearly focused on preserving dignity. But as painful as it may be to admit, isn't there a sense here in which everybody knows that he is going to have to give up something?
Well, these are negotiations. Look, if we are talking about compromises, okay, compromises are possible and even difficult, painful compromises. But, for example, we understand that we cannot liberate at this point the occupied territory. So if we have a ceasefire along the front line, it will be very painful compromise for us because occupied Ukrainian territories for the time being will remain under Russian control. And we know, you need to know what Russia is doing on these territories. It's a terror. It's, repressions about anything Ukrainian. So they would like to crush Ukrainian identity. But we are ready to have a ceasefire along the front line. That's what we are ready for. But in this so-called plan, there is a demand that Putin not only keeps the occupied territories, that he will be given even more territories, the whole Donbass. At this point, he doesn't control the whole of Donbass. So it looks very, very strange. Let me underline that what we are discussing, so-called 28 points plan, it's not a rigid plan. It's a framework for discussion. From what I understand, from what we know about these negotiations and discussions, it's not like position sign or we will kill. No. From my understanding, the US are also ready for discussion. Definitely, you cannot decide the future of Europe and Ukraine without Europe and Ukraine. For example, in this so-called plan, Russia and the United States agrees to provide a clear path for Ukrainian integration into EU. But come on, guys, who is deciding about Ukrainian integration into the EU? Russia? United States? No. It's the EU and Ukraine. So some, points are really, really strange. And what is written right now, I would say, what is suggested for debate right now, it looks like capitulation of Ukraine. For example, it will be from Ukraine to its military capacity. Come on, guys. What we are about? We are by aggressor. And we are demanded, to shorten our army and our forces. This is very strange. I think sometimes, Mr. Trump does stand all the Nobel Prize. That's what we know about.
Well, I was going to ask.
He doesn't understand.
I was sorry to interrupt.
Right.
I was going to ask you, Professor. What is your thinking behind? Why is it so vague, so broad? Is it necessarily that way because to bring parties together, you obviously can't go into too much detail straight away because you need to leave room for negotiation, or is it?
No, actually.
Okay, give us your analysis.
Yeah, well, actually, unfortunately, 8 points, and these 28 points or decides for Ukraine a lot of aspects of our domestic policy. For a demand to have presidential elections during 1 days. Come on, guys. It's not for the US and Russia to decide when we will elections. I am very critical of what Zelensky is doing. But we agreed that it's not time now to consider elections until we have this war, okay, we will need ceasefire and then to prepare carefully for elections. Not like, well, up, we stop the killings and immediately we will have elections. No, it's much more difficult. So it will be very strange if Russia dictates to us when we should conduct presidential elections, during the war or immediately after the war. That's for us, Ukrainians, to decide. And I would like also to stress that now we have scandal in Ukraine about corruption at quite high levels. But what Ukrainians are saying, including opposition, all of us are saying that we are ready to provide all the necessary support to Zelensky, because at this point, Zelensky is defending Ukraine. Okay, we may criticize him, what he is doing within the country, what is personnel policy, and so on. But we supporting him in defending national interests of Ukraine. That's very important.
There's a school of thought, Professor, that says that actually identifying the corruption scandal actually made the country look good. It showed the country was prepared to weed out corruption, which is something that exists in all societies. So rather than actually detracting from the reputation of Ukraine's leadership, it actually showed that they were prepared to admit their own weaknesses and solve those problems.
Okay, so yes, you are right. Ukraine, I mean, first of all, President Zelensky, so now he has the time to demonstrate that his presidency cases will be investigated, in all the cases of corruption. So basically, if he would do that, I think that he will restore his popularity among Ukrainians, which until recently was very high. The trust to him was almost 60%, which is extremely high, given that this is the end of fourth year of the war. So yes, we have this possibility, and we were always demanded that in our struggle for corruption, we need to catch big fish. So now we have a big fish. Okay, so the question is how this investigation will continue, and how it will be delivered directly to the court. Okay, but you are right. You know, there is a silver lining in the cloud.
And we've heard, obviously, we know that European leaders are not happy about being left out of the initial construction of this plan. What about Russia? What is Russia signaling at this point about negotiations? And also, what is your evaluation of their reaction to what we've heard about this plan?
Well, Russia signals that Russia doesn't want to have any concessions. They would continue and to have even more. This is clearly what is written in this draft. I would say, let's call it draft. It's not the final plan. So, but Russia demonstrates very clearly. Russia continues bombardment of Ukraine. You see in darkness. That's the result of what Russia doing against energy infrastructure. Russia continues to kill civilians every day. Doesn't want to have a peace. They would like to continue. They meet in different forms. They disguise it and then continue. So in this document, I would say there's nothing that demonstrates that Russia is looking for concessions. And when we talk about EU, as I have said, about EU is left aside. You know, it's simply because you cannot decide for what will be done in Europe in the same way for Ukraine.
And Professor, I just finally wanted to ask you about what happens next. We know we're expecting a phone call between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. What do you expect to be the constituent elements of that phone call? And frankly, how do you expect that to go?
We don't know. Again, I think that our diplomacy everything is possible, which is possible, not only in talking to Trump, but also talking to Europeans, to our allies. So they will do whatever is possible. And in this, as I say, they rely now on Ukrainian army. A lot depends on the situation on the front line. Okay, we need to defend ourselves. Very difficult. We Ukrainians are now in a very difficult situation, physically conditions. Again, you see me in dark, but we don't want to give up. So we don't know. There is an optimistic scenario. Actually, both European Ukraine would be able to explain to Trump what is inaccessible and to ask Trump to be more harsh with Russia. This is one way, optimistic scenario. There is a pessimistic scenario, and there is something in the middle.
Professor, we thank you very much for your analysis, and particularly considering that you have provided it given very difficult circumstances during a blackout. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.
After the break, leaders convene in Johannesburg as the G20 summit gets underway. Do stay with us.